Hi, my geniuses. Welcome to my channel, and this is Learn with Carol. Today we are doing our episode 8, and it's about writing in IELTS. This module has usually been a bit challenging to most of us, and it's quite difficult to procure a high band score up to a 9 in writing compared to reading and listening, because there are some tiny details that a very eloquent English speaker can miss. So those are the details that we are going to do in depth today in this video. A lot of people who speak very good English, who are very fluent, who use a lot of vocabulary, still have issues doing their writing test, and they are not able to get a good band score. Of course, getting a band score of 9 is going to be very challenging. However, if you practice very well, and also if you don't forget those tiny details that are entailed into this writing score calculator, then you surely would get a band 8 or a band 8.5 very easily. So what are those details is what we're going to see in this video. And of course, after this, you might have to practice a lot in writing compared to the other modules in IELTS. Listening needs a lot of practice. You don't have to learn a lot for listening, but a lot of practice is required. Reading, of course, needs a lot of practice as much as you need for writing. Speaking, of course, you need to speak a lot and practice, but we're going to be doing that in our next video, and I'm going to teach you a little more of how to improve on your speaking and how to speak to an IELTS examiner to impress and also get a good score. For today, we are going to look at the writing module in IELTS. I am going to cover the entire module and all the tasks that are in writing. So for those who are new to my channel, please click that subscribe button down below, and also click the bell icon to the right so that you get regular updates about my channel and the videos that I upload quite frequently. Do enjoy, watch and listen to my other videos as well. The episode 1 to 7 link is in the description box below. So if you want to go and refer to them and come back to this, you may do so. Or you could finish this, look into my other episodes where I've covered the listening and reading, and also an introduction to IELTS where I've covered a lot about the entire IELTS test. So please, once again, I request you to kindly subscribe before we get started. Alright, thank you for subscribing. Now let's move on. What are we going to cover today? The structure, the format and scoring, tasks, which consists of the academic task 1 or the general training task 1 and essay writing task 2. So let's see the structure. What's the structure of IELTS writing? You'll be given your materials, your question booklet, your answer sheet, your pencil and an eraser. Apologies for this, it's a question booklet. Tasks, there are 2 tasks, and there are 2 types of writing tests. One is academic and general training. The time allotted for the entire writing test is 60 minutes. Generally, task 1, you must be able to spend just about 20 minutes and not more than that. And task 2, just 40 minutes. So you have the entire 60 minutes for yourself to attend the question, write and check your answer. So the format, the writing test is different for IELTS Academic and IELTS General candidates. So what are the criterion that they would check to score you? So each of these criteria which you see here are scored separately, and then a cumulative is taken for each task, and then each task would get a separate band score, and the cumulative of those tasks would be given separately as your writing band score on the whole. So the first one is task achievement. Task achievement for task 1, you need to present accurate information, you need to provide an overview, you need to highlight key features or the stages, supporting detail with data. So this is actually what is required for task 1. So that is called task achievement. So task response is what we say for task 2. Addressing the task, that is answering the question precisely, giving relevant main points which are supported and developed, giving a clear position, that is stating an opinion if asked, and also, without fail, providing a conclusion. Task achievement is what they say for task 1, and task response is what they say for task 2. So the question is, have you achieved? Have you responded well? That is what they're going to check. The next thing is coherence and cohesion. Have you organized your information or ideas into paragraphs? Have you shown a central idea in each of the paragraphs? Have you used a range of linking devices? So coherence means organized essay or organized letter or an organized report. So it should be a step or a process or a chain that you have depicted in words. So the information from the first line to the last line should have a story-based movement, and every single paragraph should be talking about a particular subtopic. That is what is called coherence, the way you've organized your paragraphs in order to put them all together in a proper way, in order to achieve the task. And cohesion is nothing but using linking devices or linking words in order to, put two sentences together. You need to use cohesive words, or also called linking devices. Lexical resource is the next one. So they would check if you're using a range of words, and also are you paraphrasing them, because you're not supposed to copy the question just as it is. Are you using collocations? Are your spellings correct? And are you avoiding errors? So lexical resource is nothing but your usage of vocabulary, different words, different ways of expressing your opinion or expressing the issue of the topic. The next thing is grammar range and accuracy. So are you using range of sentence structures? Are you using range of grammar tenses? Are punctuations correct? Are you avoiding errors? So your grammar tenses, for example, if the question is related about something that happened before, the entire essay or the entire letter should be in your past tense. But if the question is about the future, the entire report or the letter or the essay should be in your future tense. Or if it's current, then it's present tense. So this is what they're going to check. In an IELTS academic writing test, in task 1, you'll be presented with a graph, your table, or chart, or diagram. You'll be asked to describe, summarize, or explain the information in your own words. This might involve describing and explaining data, describing the stages of a process, or how something works, so describing an object or an event. In task 2, you'll be asked to write an essay in response to a point of view, an argument, or a problem. You should find the issues interesting and easy to understand. The topics used in IELTS General Training writing tests are of general interest. In task 1, you will be presented with a situation and asked to write a letter requesting information or explaining the situation. You can write a letter in a personal, semi-formal, or a formal style. In task 2, you'll be asked to write an essay in response to a point of view, an argument, or a problem. You can use a fairly personal style. So number of words. For 2 tasks. Task 1, you need to write at least 150 words. So the minimum that should be there should be 150. And a maximum, I would personally suggest you to keep it to about 170 to 180 and not more than that, because overwriting also has penalty. Task 2, you need to write at least 250 words. So a minimum of 250 to 280 to 290 is what I would suggest that you keep it to. Your writing test will be marked by a certified IELTS examiner. Task 2 is worth twice as much as task 1 in the IELTS writing test. So the scores are repeated in whole and half bands. IELTS writing task 1 in academic. The writing task 1 of IELTS academic test requires you to write a summary of at least 150 words in response to a particular graph. And this actually will test your ability to select and report the main features, to describe and compare data, to identify significance and trends in factual information, or describe a process. In task 1, the candidates are asked to respond to a given problem with a letter. So requesting information or explaining a situation, it's suggested about 20 minutes to be spent on this task, and you need to write about at least 150 words. So depending on the task suggested, candidates are assessed on their ability to engage in personal correspondence, elicit and provide general factual information, express needs, wants, likes and dislikes, express their opinions, be it views, complaints, etc. IELTS writing task 2 requires you to write at least 250 words. You will be presented with a topic and will be tested on your ability to respond by giving and justifying an opinion, discussing the topic, summarizing details, outlining problems, identifying possible solutions, and supporting what you write with reasons, arguments, and relevant examples from your own knowledge or experience. The assessment of task 2 carries more weight in marking than task 1. Writing scripts are marked by trained and certified IELTS examiners who all hold relevant teaching qualifications and are recruited as examiners by the test centres and approved by British Council or IDP or IELTS Australia. This is the answer sheet for writing, and this is where you would write your candidate name, your candidate number, your centre name, and the date. You need to tick whether you're an academic or a general training candidate, and you would start writing from here. Please do not indent and start from here. You should always start from this point. The answer starts from here. So if your answer goes for about 4 or 5 lines and ends here, I would suggest you to leave one whole line and then your next paragraph should start here. I would suggest you to have many copies of this and practice directly with an answer sheet so that you know the number of words that you're writing every time and you can adjust it appropriately. You need to know how to count the number of words that you write every time you practice. So every time you write, if you have been practicing with your answer sheet, this answer sheet, you can actually count the number of words per line for the first paragraph. For example, if you're writing 4 to 5 words in a line, so count the number of lines and then multiply it and then find out on an average how much it is. So it should be between 150 to about 190 for your task 1, and task 2 you should have about between 250 to 280 or 290. So this comes out of practice, because during your exam, I don't think you would have that much time to write and check your answers, and then you won't have time to count the words. So if you've practiced well, you will know that you've written the correct number of words. This is the second page. So let's look at academic task 1, report writing. Spend 1 or 2 minutes studying the chart until you understand what it is showing. Explain what the chart is describing in your opening sentence. Then identify 2 or 3 main features. Don't describe everything you see. Look for any interesting feature, especially surprising or contrasting information. Start with an overall description and then move on to use details to support your main points. Remember to use expressions such as in addition and however to link your ideas. Remember to leave time to check your work before the end. Whether you have to describe a graph, table, or a chart, think carefully about what you need to include in the description. Don't describe every detail of the information. Choose the most important and interesting features to write about. Support your description with figures, but you don't need to give every number exactly. You can be approximate by using words like over, about, and around. In IELTS academic task, you'll be tested on your ability to use numbers, fraction, and percentages accurately. It is important to use the correct fraction and percentage when completing this particular task. For example, if you say just over 30%, it could also mean about 1/3. Or if you say approximately 50%, it's about half. Or if you say under 25%, you can also paraphrase it as less than 1/4. And another way of saying, for example, 1 in 20 people, that means 5% of people. So if you have a table or a graph or a map or any diagram that you have to look and write a report, don't panic. Especially when you get a map, don't panic, because sometimes the information you are given are just like ground plans, and often these are not very difficult to understand. and they just take a little bit of an extra practice. As you can write on the question papers, feel free to make notes as you analyze the maps, or diagram, or table, or chart. It's a good idea to circle, underline, or highlight the points you want to write about. It can also be helpful to number them according to which you think is most important. Remember, the more you plan what you're going to write about, the easier it is to write about it, and also have time to think about your grammar and spelling. You are required to write a description of what you see. This must be uncontroversial and evident to everyone who looks at the graph. Where relevant, you are encouraged to make connections between different parts of the data and to recognize broad trends and use these as the basis of your comparison. However, there are a number of things you should avoid, like do not speculate about the reasons behind the data, do not draw your own inferences, and also don't make any evaluation. So if you can see this task 1 for academic, you should spend about 20 minutes on this task. The bar chart below illustrates 5 different industries' percentage share of Brazil's economy in 2009 and 2019 with a forecast for 2021. Summarize. Note the word summarize. This is your keyword here. The information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Write at least 150 words. So over here, you could find the different types of industries: the finance, food processing industry, manufacturing industry, tourism, oil, coal, and gas. So the blue refers to 2009, the orange refers to 2019, and 2029 is the gray. So you have your levels here, and you just need to see, for example, in 2029, the forecast has been made for finance industry, which is just less than half. So you could say about half. So let's go in and see how the model answer is. So I've written down the model answer as to how you could write the report for this particular bar graph. So first of all, you need to introduce the bar graph. This is the introduction passage or the introduction paragraph, where you should not be copying the question, but you should be writing it in a different paraphrased manner, and keep that as your introduction. So I've written it down like the bar chart shows the actual and the projected share. So projected in the question, if you see, it says forecast. So I've said projected share of the economy of Brazil held by the 5 key business sectors. So the industry has been changed to business sectors for the years 2009, 2019, and 2029. So this is the introduction, what the bar graph shows. That is what you exactly have to do in your first paragraph. Just write in your first paragraph what the bar graph shows. That's exactly what's in the question. However, you can't copy it, so you need to paraphrase it. Now, the second paragraph would be your first body. Over here, I've written it as, instead of saying firstly, I've said beginning with the real figures. The sectors that saw growth between 2009 and 2019 are finance, fossil fuels, and food processing, with rises of around 5% for the two former and around 10% for the latter. However, both tourism and manufacturing saw falls of around 5% for that period. So I've taken a period of 2009 to 2019 and then spoke about it. Now that is done with that era. Now moving on to the future. Turning next to the projected figures for 2021, only the finance sector is predicted to see a continued growth in 2029, again by 5%. Of the remaining sectors, tourism stays at 2019 levels with around 21%, and both food processing and oil, coal, and gas return to 2009 levels, 11 and 26 respectively. Meanwhile, manufacturing sees a further drop in its share, falling by a further 10% to around 5%. So if you could see the different, if you can see the different vocabulary I've used, however, meanwhile, further, around 10%. So to finish, we give a conclusion. So there are different ways you can start your conclusion. Finally, to conclude, these are the examples. Over here, I've used the word overall for the period covered. So I'm talking about overall conclusion. The finance sector stands out in overall for the period covered. The finance sector stands out in terms of having the largest share of Brazil's economy, and its share shows continued growth. The big loser is manufacturing, which starts at the joint smallest sector and sees both real and projected falls. So all you need to do for your bar chart is have an introduction, then your body 1 and body 2. Always split the information to 2 paragraphs. You can split the 2 paragraphs in different ways in your own wish, but then it has to have a concrete division. Here I've divided the 3 years into 2 and 1. So there are different ways you can actually divide the paragraphs. Like for example, you could have divided it into different, you could have collected the industries where it did well and is going to do well, and then those kind of ways you could have divided it. So there are different ways you could have even written this very question, but I have selected this. You could have actually selected another way, but what they're going to see is how you organize your paragraphs, if your information is accurate, if your understanding is correct, and is there coherence and cohesion. Let's see the next one. This is a table that shows percentage use for 4 different fuel types to generate electricity in 5 Asian countries in 2005. Again, summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So you need to make comparisons. So if you understand the information rightly, you can compare. This is a tabular column showing the fuel type used to generate electricity, the percentage in the form of percentage. So in Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, South Korea and Japan, nuclear, coal and lignite, petroleum products, hydro and wind, and other. So how I've written down this tabular column into a report. My summary is like this. So I've again started off, like I said, the last one I started off as the bar graph shows. Here I've said the table shows different sources of fuel for producing electricity and their percentage use in 5 Asian countries in 2005. Generally, the 5 countries showed a significant difference in their patterns of consumption. Then I've taken the nuclear fuel first. Japan had the highest percentage at 49%, with South Korea second at 33%. In marked contrast, that means I've done something that is opposite, that is the lower ones. Thailand used no nuclear power at all. So these words like in marked contrast would gain you more points. Turning to coal and lignite, so you're moving on to the next type. Malaysia and Singapore use, so I've divided the types of fuels instead of dividing the countries. You could divide the countries as well in order to compare and talk about. So here I've looked at petroleum products and then the wind, hydro and wind, and given the information as a summary. Finally, so I've used the word finally here. A significant amount was produced from other sources, with 3 countries generating around 40% of the electricity from other fuels. And again, overall, it can be seen. I've given a conclusion and a final verdict and a final sentence to finish it off. So this is how you need to do your task 1 in academic training. Now moving to general training letter writing. So these are certain things that you should see. The purpose of letter. So purpose of the letter, or why you're even writing the letter, is what you need to write in your first or the second paragraph, depending on the situation or depending on your question. I am writing to suggest that, I'm writing to complain about, I'm writing to complain about, I'm writing to explain, I'm writing to invite you, I'm writing to thank you for, I'm writing to apologize for, I'm writing to ask for your help with, I'm writing to apply for, I'm writing to give advice about, I'm writing to say how sorry I am about that. So it could be this, or it could be a polite request, which would usually come towards the concluding paragraph. I would appreciate it if you would or if you could. I would be grateful if you would or could. Saying no politely. I'm afraid that. I'm sorry that. So these are ways you request politely. Ending. I look forward to hearing from you soon. I hope to hear from you in the near future. So these are the ending words, ending sentence structures that you could add on and incorporate it in your letter writing. So the beginning of your letter, you need to start your letter with something that is appropriate for the situation and that will capture the reader's attention. If it's a formal letter, you should mention the purpose in the opening paragraph. If it's an informal letter, you should start with a more general opening paragraph. Look at the different ways of beginning a letter. If it's formal, you could have these kind of options like I am writing with regards to or in connection with. I am writing in the hope that. I would like to express my concern about. I'm a resident of and I would like to draw your attention to. If it is informal, you could write as it was lovely to see you and your family last month. Apologies for not writing for so long, but I've been really busy. It was great to get your postcard and I'm thrilled to hear you are. It's been a long time since we saw each other. So these are the sentence structures that you could incorporate in your letter and it could gain you a lot of points. So before the task, what you need to do, read the question very well, identify the situation, what's going on. And then what you need to do is underline the keywords. Spend about less than 5 minutes brainstorming details to include in your response. Decide which of these you would include in your letter and which you don't want to include in your letter. Then decide how you want to structure your letter and what you will include in each paragraph. Then read through your letter to check the spelling and grammar. Make sure you've written at least 150 words. When you're considering the purpose of your letter, you also need to think about what you have to do in the letter, what you have to do, complain, advise, etc. A lot of things that you would do. This will affect the language and expressions that you choose actually. You need to use the right tone throughout your letter. You will lose marks if you use an inappropriate tone or if you use the wrong tone in the parts of your letter. Examiners will ignore the sections of text copied directly from the question. Please remember that. So you need to paraphrase and remember that will also reduce the total word count and may also reduce your marks again. You do not need to put your address in the letter for the test. You'll be told in the instruction who you're writing to. So this is one of the example that I brought in here in this video. You are currently taking a course at a college, but you will need to have a week off during this course. So write a letter to the college principal. So now you know who you're supposed to write to. And then it goes on in the letter, the 3 things that you have to include. First thing, you need to give details of your course. Second, you need to explain why you need a week off. Then 3, say what you want the principal to do. So these 3 things are the things that you need to incorporate in your letter. And if you don't, your task achievement score will be really, really less. So make sure you include these 3 details. So this is how the letter should be. The first thing is, Dear Sir or Madam, I'm an international student in my second year of computer science course at the college. My tutor is Mr. Johnson and I'm a full-time student living in a college residence. So this is about the details of the course. Then you move down to talk. So that's an introduction or the opening paragraph in your letter. Now going to the second paragraph should be the issue or the problem. So the first one is an introduction. Second paragraph will be your problem. So I'm writing to request a week's leave from the college next month. My cousin's wedding is taking place in my home country and my family expects me to be there. Although this will mean that I have to miss lectures for a week. I can arrange for one of my friends on the course to give me any notes concerning what I've missed. So this is the issue that he's brought up and he's also giving him an alternative or a solution to the problem in the same paragraph. Now, what he needs to do is, so the first, in the introduction, the first task is achieved. In the second paragraph, the second task is achieved where you need to talk about why you need to take an off. So that is achieved now. Let's see if we have achieved the third task where what we need him to do for us. So I would be grateful if you would give me permission to be absent for the week beginning 25th May. If you are kind enough to allow me to do this, I will speak to Mr. Johnson and arrange to make up for any work that I did not do while I was away. So this is how you need to write your letter. And you can also add in a last line saying, thank you for your kindness, or thank you for granting me leave in advance, something like that, or yours faithfully, Jonah Smith. Now going to Xray writing, which is the task 2. Generally, this task is the same for both academic and general training. Your introduction should be directly relevant to the question. It should point clearly to the main body and conclusion of the answer. You do not need to include much information in the introduction. The information you do include should be directly relevant. A good way to make an impression is to include some information that is relevant and will catch the reader's attention. If, for example, you are arguing that the world must organize itself better to fight poverty, you could include the stark fact that almost 1 billion people in the world are hungry. Decide what your conclusion is before you plan your answer. This is the point of view you will be expressing throughout your answer, so you need to express it in the introduction as well as in the conclusion. Giving your opinions or expressing attitude. How do you start with? These are some examples. In my view, or in my opinion, or you could say from my point of view. So you're giving a personal touch there. I tend to think, or I tend to believe, or I feel that. I would argue that. I tend to think that. I'm not sure I agree with that. I tend not to believe that as far as I am concerned. Or you could say arguably, as a matter of fact, interestingly, clearly, to a certain extent. Now, introducing arguments. You could start off like the main argument in favor of, the main argument in favor against. It's certainly true that, it's believed or felt that, or it's generally believed, or you could say the general view is, or the general view has been that. Experts would argue, professionals would argue, or would say that. So when you present reasons or examples, these are examples that you could use. One of the main reasons why, there are a number of reasons why, there are a number of reasons for this reason, presenting a counter argument, having said that, made this point or these points, despite or in spite of this, expressing purpose, you could use with the aim of, or in order to, so as to, or if you want to emphasize, what we people or what we governments need to or should do is. So this comes towards the end. All that someone needs to or should do is, it is important that, so when you finish off, you would draw a conclusion like this, saying overall or all in all or ultimately or in the end or to conclude, in conclusion. There are many words that you can use to express different parts of the essay, and that is what is lexical resource that they would mark you under. So when it comes to writing an advantage or disadvantage essay, very often in this exam you will have to write an essay like this, and this is where you have to write about the good points and the bad points of one common situation. So here's a typical question: what are the advantages and disadvantages of leaving your country to live or study abroad? First thing, remember, you could write an introduction to the topic. That is going to be exactly the paraphrased part of your question. Then the second paragraph will be 2 advantages to the situation, providing very clear examples. The third paragraph will be 2 disadvantages and write few examples and support your point. So the last paragraph would be a short conclusion giving your overall opinion. When it comes to an argument essay, the structure of a balanced argument essay should be having an introduction, a body 1, body 2, body 3, and conclusion. So when you need to argue about a particular situation, your introduction should introduce the topic, which is exactly the same thing which is there in the question, but in a paraphrased form. Paraphrased form means you just write the question back into the first paragraph, but you're not going to repeat those words. You're going to use synonyms, paraphrased sentence structure. So it makes clear that both sides of the argument will be examined. Body 1, which is the second paragraph, will introduce the first idea and supports with reason and example. So you would mention an opposing view that concludes the paragraph by refuting it with your opinion. Now body 2 will introduce a second idea and support it with reasons and examples. Body 3 will introduce the opposing argument and support with examples. Conclude the paragraph at the end of your view. Remember that you need to give your view there. And in conclusion, you need to summarize the main points and conclude with the writer's opinion based on the arguments in the essay. So no new ideas should be expressed here. What are the linking expressions that you can use? In task 2 of academic writing exam, you need to support your opinion you express by providing examples, and you can use these phrases. To introduce an example, you could use, for example, for instance, including, for one thing. Another example of this is, or if you want to introduce an additional point, you could say also, furthermore, in addition to this, moreover. If you want to describe a cause, you could say another reason for this is, or because of, or due to. To describe a result, you could say the result of this is, this leads to, consequently, as a result, this means that. While grammar is one leg, vocabulary is a second leg for your writing to stand on. But note that simple, correct English is better than experimenting with sophisticated vocabulary and getting it wrong. You might try out unfamiliar vocabulary if you have a helpful teacher, but not during a test. These are certain words and phrases that you can make a special point of learning carefully because they are likely to be used in most, if not all, essays. Make sure you have enough vocabulary for each of the common categories. For example, if it's about evaluation, then you could use words like benefit, unsatisfactory. If it's consequence, cause, or reason, you could use examples like outcome, the produce, or explanation. And connectors, you could use under these circumstances, moreover. These are vocabularies, those are words that you need to put in different situations. The best way to learn these is to look for example in your reading and then copy them into your own personal vocabulary book under the appropriate headings. Be careful to copy whole phrases, not just single words, so that you learn the correct uses of these expressions. In many ways, your conclusion and introduction are very similar in that they both state your opinion. The introduction is probably the shortest section of a task 2 essay. It might contain a restatement of the question, your opinion, what and how you are going to discuss the question. These are the three things an introduction should have. First thing, a restatement of the question, a paraphrased structure of the question. The second line would be your opinion, and the third line would be what and how you are going to discuss the question. So this is the introduction part. When you write your introduction, do not copy the question word for word. It has to give a lot of background information. So in here, they will ask a question about a social topic such as environment, education, media, and you must answer these questions by giving your opinions along with reasons and example, mandatorily. And you must write at least 250 words and don't spend more than 40 minutes to read, understand, create a structure, write, and also check. You need to finish it within 40 minutes. It's important to use a standard essay structure consisting of separate paragraphs, but as I said, an introduction followed by main body of the essay. It could be body 1, 2, 3, or just 2 paragraphs, and then a conclusion. So when you go to the main body of your essay, you need to explain your ideas fully. Examiners are going to look at how you develop your topic sentences and will give you a better score if you do it well. So every paragraph should have a very good topic sentence. Your topic sentence is the first line of every single paragraph. So that topic sentence should actually give the central idea of that particular paragraph. So if you've done that well, your score gets to go higher. At the end of any type of essay, you need to write a short conclusion. The important thing to remember there is there are no right or wrong conclusions, and the examiner is not going to make any judgments about your opinion, so you can write freely and clearly. So if you see this question, it says, in the past, most people used to travel to their place of work. With increased use of computers, the internet, and smartphones, more and more people are starting to work from home. The first line is the issue. Now the question is, what are the advantages and disadvantages of this development? So the first thing you're going to do is you need to look at this particular question. You have your booklet in your hand. You need to create a skeleton in your booklet itself. It's only after you've created the skeleton with your keywords, you should move on to writing into your answer sheet. If you don't have a skeleton or a rough work in your question booklet, when you get straight off to your answer sheet, you might not be well organized and you would lose marks for coherence. And you won't be able to put up all your opinions in the answer sheet. as you might have to write your essay in a very neat and legible manner. The more organized, the more clear it is, it's going to be easier for the examiner, and consequently your results are going to be good. So this is how I have put them together. So the first paragraph should always be a paraphrased part of the question and your opinion. The second paragraph is going to be all about the advantages, and the third paragraph is all about the disadvantages, and there's a conclusion. So as I said, a disadvantage and advantage essay should have the first part as the introduction, first paragraph as introduction, second paragraph advantages with examples, third paragraph disadvantages and examples, and in conclusion you need to give your own conclusion. So over here, how have I paraphrased the question? The way in which we work has changed a great deal in recent years. While some people still travel to their place of work each day, others have the option to work from home. This has all become possible since the birth of internet and smartphones, which enable workers to be in constant contact with their colleagues and clients all over the world. There are both advantages and disadvantages to this new development. So the first one, I've talked about advantages. So you need to put down what you think are the advantages of working from home, and then you can support your answer with some evidences. Then also talk about the disadvantages, what you feel, and then finally give your conclusion. So let's look at another type of essay writing. So here, people who cause their own illnesses through unhealthy lifestyles and poor diets should have to pay more for healthcare. This is the issue. And the question is, to what extent do you agree or disagree with this opinion? So in an agree or disagree question type, you should either agree or disagree. You cannot agree and disagree at the same time. So you need to either agree or disagree. So as I said earlier, this is how you would start. You have to paraphrase the entire question in this way or this type. And then this is how I have paraphrased it. Healthcare costs all over the world are rising due to the rise of modern diseases which are a product of unhealthy lifestyle. These lifestyles include poor diet, smoking, and lack of exercise. While many people do not need to use medical services, there are others who constantly need medication due to their unhealthy daily lives. So that's the first part of my first paragraph. In my view, people who are responsible for their own illness should have to contribute towards the cost of their medical treatment. So that's how I finished my first paragraph. So that gives you the information about my particular view. So I've started my topic sentence is this. First of all, it is important to highlight the fact that ignorance is not an excuse. So I've talked about ignorance, of how people don't take care of themselves, and even though there's a lot of awareness around, people don't take care of themselves, and some examples to support my answer. And then because I started off, first of all, I have started my second topic sentence in my second paragraph as secondly, it is clear that certain types of treatment are very expensive and some diseases can be prevented by adopting a healthy lifestyle. So I talked about how much people pay unnecessarily. And the conclusion is exactly what I have described here in a shorter form. A lot of vocabulary, a lot of expressive words, your tenses should be correct, your spelling should be correct, your grammar, your punctuations, your way of expressing coherence and cohesion is very important, and your task response. I've kept a test for academic and general. This is a pie chart below showing the comparison of different kinds of energy production of France in 2 years. So comparison of pie chart, you could practice this and you could post it a comment, or you can contact me via email. This is a letter that you can practice for general training task 1. And this is an essay that you can write and practice for both general and academic. Episode 1 to 7 link is in the description box below. Please subscribe, like, comment, and do share to all those who are practicing IELTS. Click on the bell icon to get updates on my upcoming videos. So as I've always said, and I am going to keep saying this again and again, practice is key for achieving a high band score in IELTS. And that's the only way to achieving what you want to achieve. So hard work will surely pay. Keep practicing, watch my videos, practice, practice, and practice. Until my next video, signing off, this is Carol.